Say hi to everybody. Well, hello everybody. It is Karissa and welcome back to my channel. How am I supposed to focus when I have this cute puppy on me? Literally the cutest thing in the entire world. That's my baby. So today's video, I am not going to be as peppy and happy and in your face as usual. I wanted to sit down and talk about my anxiety and depression story. This is a video that I have literally planned to film for the last 2 years that I've been doing social media, but I haven't quite didn't really have the balls to talk about all of it. It's a bit hard. So I finally gotten to a point where I'm like, you can do this. I think you can do it. So here's me attempting to do it. So basically, I have suffered with anxiety and depression for a very, very long time. I would say that my anxiety definitely started before the depression, and then the depression was kind of like a result of the anxiety taking over. So I really wanted to talk about my story because I feel like mental health in general is something that is just thankfully been talked about a lot more in this generation. However, it has also kind of been abused, if that makes sense. I feel like everybody and their mother has anxiety nowadays, and everyone and their mother is depressed. And although there are a lot of people who really do deal with mental illnesses, I feel like not everybody. I feel like people just use it as a joke or because they want some type of attention, and it really upsets me because I know how it is and how it feels to have anxiety and depression, and it fucking sucks. It literally sucks. It takes over your world and it makes you feel like you are living somebody else's life. So starting off, I would say about 8th grade is really when my anxiety started to come into play. I had this like thing about me where I would get like really obsessed with things, and I honestly, and looking back on it now, I honestly just feel like it's me being a fucking child and just not really knowing who I was. So I tried to be like other people in order to find who I was. And if I'm being honest, like all cards on the motherfucking table, I still do that. I honestly still envy a lot of people and will want to act like them or like do the things that they're doing to see if I think that it's who I am, because even now I struggle to kind of discover and figure out who I am as a person. Here I am, 22 years old, and it still has not been found. In the 8th grade, I would honestly just get really worried about every little thing that would happen to me. And if there was like a situation that was really minor, I would make it into this really big thing. It could be something really small that it's like, oh, you know, like probably shouldn't have done that, but I'm not going to get in trouble, so let's move on. For me, it would be like, oh my god, this is the end of my life, like I'm gonna be grounded forever, or this is gonna make me a terrible person, I can't believe that I did this. And it would just like stay on my mind over and over and over and over again. I also started to notice that in the 8th grade, it was really hard for me to fall asleep. I would be going to bed around 3 a.m. and then waking up for school around 5:30, 6 o'clock. And it wasn't because I like had my phone or anything like that. I've always been very tech savvy. Like when I was younger, instead of going outside to play with friends, I would stay inside and literally edit videos. I've always been someone who loves to create content. However, at nighttime, I would really just enjoy to listen to music. It's the only thing that was able to help me fall asleep, because if I didn't listen to music, my mind would literally be racing and I would just be thinking about all of these different things that literally I had no control over. So fast forwarding to high school, obviously it was a big transition going from middle school to high school. And if you guys want a separate video of my high school experience, I could totally freaking give you that, because this is just the icing on the cake. This isn't even the whole cake. So 9th grade is when all the terrible memories started. At this point, I was like rebelling against my parents, and what I mean by that is basically I was like bad mouthing them and just like kind of being a shitty person towards them. But I wasn't like out doing drugs or, you know, drinking alcohol or anything like that. I literally did not do any of that shit until I was like 18. But I wanted to kind of rebel because I felt like nobody understood me. I felt like these thoughts that were racing in my mind, like I felt crazy. So the end of 8th grade, before I started high school, my parents decided to put me in therapy, and I would go and see this therapist every single week. And I can honestly say that I looked forward to going to see her. I felt like I could talk to her and that I would have no judgment, and I just felt very open and comfortable with her, and I really, really did enjoy seeing her. So I saw her half the end of 8th grade, all of 9th grade, all of 10th grade, all of 11th grade, and then 12th grade is when I stopped seeing her. So in the 9th grade, high school was very hard for me. In middle school, I honestly kind of kept to myself. I was really focused on school, and I was like obsessed with Camp Rock, had really big glasses, had this huge gap between my teeth. Like nobody was to be bothered with me. Literally, I was fucking nobody. And I kind of grew up from the 8th grade to the 9th grade, so I kind of like finished going through puberty, I guess you could say, and didn't have the gap in my teeth. I didn't wear my glasses anymore. I had long, pretty hair. I was pretty skinny. Like basically I went from ugly to about a 5, and people started to notice that. I've always had a bigger butt. So, I mean, if you watch any of my fitness content, you would know that I do have a bigger bum, and honestly, I've always had it. I've always had a bigger lower body. So, obviously in high school, that's when the guys really start to pay attention to you, and I would constantly get this attention about my body and how I looked, and it was just really weird for me. Rather than being a very exciting thing, it was just very overwhelming, and my anxiety just started to get worse. And obviously people could tell that I was very anxious and very awkward because I started to get bullied. It would get to a point where I would go home crying to my parents saying that I did not want to go to school. It was just really, really bad. It was one thing after another. Like I remember going to the bus stop in 9th grade, and there was these 2 girls, which I do know their full first and last name because they are fucking assholes, but I remember they would throw gum in my hair and make fun of me because I listened to rock music, and I was just terrified to go on the bus every day because they were the type of people who would get in fights and just like freak out on people, and I was scared that they were gonna beat me up, honestly. At this point, I was still seeing my therapist, and it was getting pretty bad, so my parents said, like, my therapist recommended for me to go see a psychiatrist. I think that's the one that prescribes you medicine, and get myself on some medication because she just felt like my anxiety was too much to handle on my own, at least in that moment. I go to a psychiatrist, and I'm trying medicine after medicine after medicine after medicine after medicine, and nothing is working for me. Nothing is working at all. It's either making me too sleepy, not sleep, aggressive, sad, depressed, tired. Like literally I've been on every medication that you could probably think of: Lexapro, Wellbutrin, Xanax, Prozac, you name it. I've been on it, and none of it was really working for me. If anything, it was just making my anxiety so much worse because I felt like a guinea pig. I felt like people were just giving me these pills to kind of change who I was, because who I was, I couldn't handle. So the end of 9th grade comes, and I specifically remember when I was put on Prozac in the 9th grade, and I was in a hotel room with my parents and my little brother, and he was pretty young at the time. And I remember he came behind me while I was sitting on the bed, and he kind of went like this to my back. Like it didn't hurt or anything. It was just very sudden. And my instant reaction was to just turn around and punch him in the face. And I literally felt terrible. I stood there and I was like, and like my brother's crying. And I'm like freaking out, and I just felt terrible, and it wasn't me, it was the Prozac that was taking over me. Like, hello, I would never freaking blatantly hit my brother in the face. So after the Prozac stopped working, they switched me on something else. I honestly don't even remember which one they like switched me to after that, because I know that I tried a few other ones before I finally got to one that somewhat worked for me. So I started to hang out with the theater people, and there has always, and I say always because I still have this feeling, where I always feel like I don't fit in and I don't belong. It was really weird because I was a super creative person and I always wanted to hang out with all of the, you know, creative people that were into the same things as me, but the issue is that those people were either very like enclosed in their group, and also it was like all the popular people, and like they would kind of gravitate towards me because I guess I kind of fit into what they looked like or something. And I never really had a friends group. I was kind of just like acquaintances with everyone around me, and it just caused me to be really lonely. In the 9th grade, I joined field hockey, and this is where I finally felt like I found my place. I was pretty good starting out for never playing field hockey before, and I just found a group of really great girls that I really enjoyed hanging around. I finally felt like I fit in somewhere, and it was just great. At this point, I was on Lexapro mixed with Wellbutrin. I would have really bad mood swings where I would just like flip the F out, and the Wellbutrin was supposed to stabilize my mood while the Lexapro was supposed to help with the anxiety. We found that the mix of these two were okay, definitely better than any of the other shit I was on. So we decided to stick with that, and I played field hockey my freshman year, and the year itself wasn't terrible. I was definitely still anxious, but it was nothing compared to what I had been feeling. So the beginning of 10th grade starts, and I notice that my anxiety is getting a little bit worse. And I remember it was just like some days I would wake up and I would feel like I have so much like pressure. I just felt emotionally drained, and I felt like I just did not want to get out of bed. I didn't really know what was going on with my body, but it's so hard to explain. It's like you wake up and you feel like you're not a part of the world that you live in. It's so hard to explain, but I just felt like I had this huge weight on my shoulders that I just couldn't seem to get rid of. So 10th grade started out a little bit rocky. I remember I did end up going and being a part of the field hockey team that year, and it was so great. I was a captain, and it was just awesome. Again, those girls were the only thing that was really keeping me together, because the team was just awesome, and I felt like I had friends. Even if they were just my teammates, like I felt like they were my friends. So I remember after field hockey season, it's really complicated because you would be super, super close with these girls, and then after field hockey season, everybody kind of went and did their own thing. So I tried to continuously like still hang out with them and still be friends with them. I really made an effort to kind of find a spot in my high school, and nobody really knew about the struggles that I was going through. So it was after that point that I was just spiraling downhill. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I would walk by myself. I would be by myself. I just got into this really depressive state where I just wanted nothing to do with it. I felt like everybody was out to get me, and it was just really hard for me. And so I remember, you know, it got to a point where I couldn't even get out of bed. I was crying every single morning, just not wanting to do life itself. I mean, it's very true. And my parents then decided that they were going to take me out of school, and I was going to be in this thing called home hospitalization, where a teacher comes to my house and teaches me all of my schoolwork for every single day for literally only about like 2 hours, which is really funny that I could learn everything in 2 hours, which I didn't, because you can learn all of your subjects in just 2 hours a day. So basically this lady came to my house every single day for 2 hours every day, Monday through Friday, teaching me the stuff that I would have learned in school. And yeah, basically for the rest of the 10th grade year, I was home hospitalized, being put on a bunch of different medicines until we finally just decided to stick with Lexapro and Lexapro only. I was still talking to a few of my friends that I went to high school with, and one of them really wanted me to go to prom that year. And the issue is that I was in 10th grade, so I couldn't go to prom, obviously. So he had one of his friends ask me to prom, one of his friends that I had never met. And I was like, yeah, totally, like we can go to prom together, that'll be really cool, so that I could hang out with all my other friends that were already going to prom. So prom comes up and I'm still home hospitalized, but I'm allowed to go to prom, like I'm still a part of the school. And I remember when I went to prom, the guy that took me tried to get me to sleep with him. He tried to get me to sleep with him, and I was not having it. I was literally a virgin, first of all, but even if I wasn't, like, fuck off. And so he was like, well, let's go dance. And I was already like freaked out by the point of him wanting to sleep with me, and I was just like, no. So at this point I was really like freaked out at prom, and I'm already like being home hospitalized, so I'm already like not around people, and you take me being home with just my mom all day and then putting me in a room with a bunch of fucking teenagers that are literally like all dry humping each other. He got really pissed off at me and ended up leaving me at prom. Again, that is like a whole nother story. Like I can make so many story times of the shit that has happened to me, but to make the story short and simple, he left me at prom, and the next day he put out all these things on Twitter calling me a hoe and a whore, and just like basically saying that I sleep with everyone, although I was a virgin and refused to sleep with him. So right when I thought that I was ready to go back to school, that reassured me that I absolutely fucking do not. And the issue was that I never knew how to handle confrontation out and how to handle conflict. I didn't know what else to do other than freak out and have an anxiety attack. And so it was really, really, really hard for me to kind of grasp everything, in which I just continued to be home hospitalized. I finally ended up going back to school in the 11th grade. I took half of the year off in the 10th grade, went back, and this is honestly when things got the worst. Personally, I don't think that the home hospitalization helped me at all. I think if anything, it made my anxiety and my depression worse. I went an entire half of a year without seeing or talking to my friends, and it's not like I was sheltered and couldn't do it. It was just that I was emotionally going through a lot and was embarrassed to talk to anyone about it. So I went back to school, decided I was going to go back to field hockey, and being at home for half a year, I gained some weight. I gained about 25 pounds, and that 25 pounds really held me back. I was not as good at field hockey as I used to be. I was so behind, I couldn't keep up with the girls, and that was just so depressing. I felt so worthless, so useless. I felt like I just didn't fit in, and fair enough, I didn't fit in. The girls acted as if I wasn't even their friend previously. It's kind of like they moved on, which I honestly couldn't get mad about. It was like, you were gone for half a year and we kind of just went on with our lives. So when I came back, they weren't all open arms like, hey Karissa, welcome back. It was kind of just like, where have you been? You were missing, and now you came back 25 pounds heavier and can't even play field hockey. So that's kind of what it felt like. It was just really depressing. I had no friends. Literally, it was a point where in the 11th grade, I would skip lunch and stay in like some classrooms or even the bathroom sometimes. Like, I know it sounds like something that's just in the movies, but yeah, people do sit in the bathroom and eat their lunch because they have no friends. That was me. So I was just honestly super, super depressed all the time, and it kind of got into a routine of how I would just kind of do my own thing and be by myself, and it got to a point where I was okay with doing my own thing and not having friends. And at this point, my only best friend, who is currently still my best friend, Marissa, she actually moved to Frederick at this point, so she wasn't even at my school anymore, so I didn't really have anyone to call my best friend or to even hang out with. So after 11th grade, I kind of went through all of 11th and all of 12th grade, kind of just chilling by myself, doing my own thing. And within these 4 years, I actually had a boyfriend that I was with from the end of 8th grade all the way until our first year of college. And it was on and off the entire time. We were never steady throughout the full 4 years, but that was definitely the person that I was on and off with the entire high school career, whatever. And I'd grown very, very close to him. I felt like he was the only person who really understood me, and again, another story for another time, but basically I went through but fast forwarding to my first year of college, I went through a very traumatic experience that had to do with him. It was a super fucked up story, like pretty bad to where I don't even know if I would ever be comfortable with sharing it on the internet unless I did this full time, because it's just something that is really hard for me to talk about. But point blank, that put me into a really, really, really depressed state. I think I was definitely the most depressed that I had ever been. I was suicidal. I did not want to live anymore. And when I did tell a family member that was very close to me, I felt like the response was just not fair. It was kind of like, yeah, well, you know, it happens. You know, you can get over it, just push through kind of thing. And at that point, I was just in the lowest of lows. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and I literally have this distinct memory in my mind, and I don't know why I always have this distinct memory in my mind, but basically I woke up and it was like summer or something, and I went to Dunkin' Donuts with my mom, and I ended up getting a muffin. And I remember that I took one bite of the muffin and I was so nauseous, and I just didn't eat for the rest of the day. And that's how it would go every single day. I ended up dropping like 30 pounds. I was super, super skinny, but it definitely looked healthy on me because I've always been a bit thicker. And I was just so depressed, and it got to a point where everywhere I was going, I was seeing him. Everywhere I was going, I was seeing his friends, and I just wanted a clean start because I felt like the people that I had reached out to about the situation didn't help me. So I packed all of my stuff and I left and moved to Florida. At this point, I was still on Lexapro, and I told myself, fuck this medicine. This shit has never helped me. All this time, I've just been a guinea pig, and I'm done being a guinea pig. So I quit Lexapro cold turkey, moved to Florida with my aunt, and I literally had flu-like symptoms for like a month straight, because if you know anything about medication, you are not supposed to quit that shit cold turkey. You will get sick as fuck, and I vouch for that. I was so sick. And a lot more goes into all of that, but that has nothing to really do with my anxiety and depression. It just continued to be really, really bad. I started to make story times here on YouTube that actually had a few really good hits, but I was so vulgar and so like just disgusting. I was literally like a Tana Mojo before Tana Mojo, and it was just like terrible. I was very just like did not give a fuck about anything, and I kind of just let the things that happened to me numb me. So when I eventually ended up moving back to Maryland, and honestly I feel like my anxiety and depression weren't there, but I think that it's just because again I numbed it, and I was kind of just numb to the world. I had this mentality that I did not give a fuck. I'm going to do whatever I want to do and fuck what anybody thinks about it. And in a way, looking back on it now, I do wish that I still had a lot of those qualities, just not to that extent. Because I really think that there are a lot of things that I used to do that I wouldn't do now, and I look back on it and I'm like, I need to be that person again. But anyway, when I met Justin a little over 4 years ago, everything just kind of changed. We instantly connected, and my anxiety was doing pretty well. I thought that I had a really good grasp of things. I was convinced. I was so convinced that I had cured my anxiety. I was no longer depressed, and I did it all myself, because this is when I started to get into self-care, which does help with your anxiety for sure, but it definitely, I wouldn't say cures it, at least for me. You know, my boyfriend is in college and I am also in college, working a full-time job and paying rent, living in a place with 2 other guys on top of my boyfriend. So it was just a lot that was kind of going on. My job was over an hour away. I was just juggling too much. And because I was juggling so much, it came back. Ever since then, it has been a really big struggle to kind of get over it. I've gotten to a point where I'm 22 years old now, and my boyfriend has graduated from college. I had to drop out of college because I couldn't afford it, and I had to get a full-time job. My boyfriend has this really great job, and I'm at a job that I absolutely do not enjoy. And, you know, it's gotten to a point where my anxiety and my depression have been pretty bad lately. There are definitely ways that help me with it. Things like meditating, exercising, reading inspirational books or motivational books, and doing the things that I love. But it's really hard out here. It's been really hard, and it's definitely not over. I think my anxiety and my depression has gotten to a point where I personally think that I need to see somebody, in which I will be taking the action to do that. But I have been putting it off for months and months and months because I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. Every time that I think about going to see somebody, I just think about all the medication that I was on and how I do not want to be on medication ever again because it ruined my life. Yeah, I would love to say that my anxiety and my depression is all gone and that it's great, and you know, I went through all this bullshit to get to where I am now, but I want to be real, and I want to speak for people who are still battling with mental illness, because I am too, and I know how you feel, and I feel like everyone waits for a finished product when it comes to telling their story, and I just think that's wrong. I think that we're never finished products, and our past is always going to haunt us, but I think that it's up to us to learn from the past and move forward. And I just wanted to kind of share this story with you guys to let you know that you're not alone, and I struggle as well. That's my story. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, or kind of didn't enjoy it because it's kind of sad, but I just wanted to speak out because I know that there are a lot of people who can relate, and you know, that's my story. To be continued.